expecting something that we don't know about?
Test.
No, I'm just
Ready.
overprotective, I guess. Geez, we had some excitement in the county last night.
That's what I heard. Yeah. Here we go again.
Unfortunate excitement.
Takes his coat off and throws it on the floor. Where do you think you are, home?
He's making himself at home, yep.
We don't have any books hanging in there.
It's a slippery coat.
We're all dressed like a gal at work for me that was from South Carolina, and we had an inch of snow and come in with boots and.
It's still a little chilly out there.
Hey, when it gets 50, I'll switch my.
It gets 50.
With you.
Well, and you're safe this week, aren't you?
Yeah.
Only for a day.
Yeah, I haven't counted up the numbers lately, how many days we've been below the average high, but it's.
One of the magazines I was looking at the other day, this guy said, he asked his friend if he golfed. He said, yeah, but I golf in the 70s. If it gets any warmer or colder than that, I don't.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. I'll turn my machine on here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's 9 a.m. April 10th. Wouldn't look like it outside, but that's what it is. And we want to open up the weekly Cottington County Board of Commissioners meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Commissioner Van Dusen, would you lead us?
Sure, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
We have a marathon day today, so put your seatbelts on and hang on. A couple of things. If you have a cell phone, please silence it or turn it off. And if you get a call you need to take, please step out in the rotunda area and take that phone call out there so you don't disrupt the meeting. This meeting is being streamed live, and if you approach the board, and maybe even if you don't approach the board, you will be on the live tape, so keep that in mind. That being said,
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion to accept the agenda. Is there a second to that?
Second.
A motion by Hatton, second by Gable. I have a couple of things. I would like to have an exec session, a very short exec session, personnel issue, that would be number 1. And then, is there anyone in the audience that would wish to address the commission during the open? So we can allow time and make certain we have time for that. Anyone? Seeing none, then we'll go ahead. Any other additions or corrections to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Minutes of the April 3rd meeting.
Move to approve as emailed.
Motion by Hatton, second by Van Dusen, to approve the minutes of the April 3rd meeting. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go right on then to number 4, and this is the second reading, which is a public hearing and action to approve ordinance number 67. And that ordinance, as redone, is in your packet. Everyone should have a copy of it. Make certain that you get the right one, because there was a couple of them floating around here that weren't quite, didn't have everything, all the I's dotted, T's crossed, but the one that should have been in your packet should be the final copy. That being said, will you make any comments before we open it up to public hearing, Luke?
Sure.
Morning, Commissioners. Thank you.
Morning, Luke.
Go ahead and take that mic, Luke.
Sure.
Just take the mic, yeah.
First and forehand, I will read the title of the ordinance just for the sake of having the second reading formally here, and this is Ordinance 67, an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Article 4, Administration of Ordinance 65, an ordinance amending Ordinance 15, which was an ordinance establishing comprehensive zoning regulations for Kyan County, South Dakota, and providing for the administration, enforcement, and amendment thereof pursuant to SDCL 11-2, 1967, and amendments thereof, and for the repeal of all resolutions and/or ordinances in conflict herewith. And that is the second reading of that ordinance. What we've got here today, and I'm going to do a couple of things here. This is the first ordinance that we'll have in a process that was started back in December 2016 when the county committed to updating the zoning ordinance for the county. Over the last year, of course, had some input sessions and decided to start with the administrative section, which kind of lays the groundwork as far as how we issue permits. This section here is basically how the Board of Adjustment and how permits are issued. And so this has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, and again, that's basically their rules for how they do things. A lot of the changes within there are basically to either, one, catch up to state law, or two, just to make sure that the language reflects the policies of the board. However, there are a couple of changes within there. I'm not going to go verbatim through these because this is our third public hearing. It's been advertised 5 times between our work sessions, as well as a couple of meetings at the Planning Commission after the work session, and then here it's been online for several months as well, and had 2 small amendments that I'll highlight in just a second. Basically, I described from a larger context as to what the changes were. Probably the bulk of the ink on this is spent in a couple of sections. One of them is on a little bit of language that I've had a couple of questions on, called the permitted special use permit. And the permitted special use permit was something that had a lot of discussion with the board in their work session, but I'm going to describe what that is. A permitted special use is it's a use that would be allowed by right, similar to a permitted use. However, it's subject to specific conditions that are outlined in ordinance. And I had a question from someone that said, well, isn't that a lot like a conditional use? It is like a conditional use, but it's not. The best example I can give you is that from a standpoint of reality, the way that we'll have to do this, is that this is something that'll have to be listed in each zoning district. Otherwise, you don't get to do it that way. It stays the same way the ordinance is. Today, obviously, the permitted special uses aren't listed. So right now, this is just a tool that we don't have anything for, or the better analogy is, this is a 9/16 wrench, but all we have is metric bolts right now. Until we get any standard 9/16 bolts, this section is not going to be used. And then the follow-up question to that is, Luke, why do that now? Well, what we learned a year ago was we really don't want to intermingle this section with that section because we don't want one chip to take the whole pile over. So the idea was we'll lay this out as an option. I know the Planning Commission had made it clear to me at the public hearing or at the work session that not to expect many of these written in the ordinance. These are probably going to be the 100 out of 100 times we're issuing variances on them, like on a farmstead exemption perhaps, or when a township is okay with a Shelley Belt being closer to a right-of-way. Those are the things that I expect this to be on. But today, nothing. I just kind of wanted to lay that out. So in the end, these people, they come in, they'd say, I've met these conditions. They'd fill something out, say, I've met these conditions. That goes with the building permit. Then I report that back as a zoning officer to the board that they've met these conditions and I've issued those permits. That's all that would be. So a lot of explanation for that. The other portion that had some updates was just in terms of general information on issuing conditional uses, and I know that some people may get concerned when they hear that. However, all we really tried to do was the language that was within there was some of the initial language in conditional use permits from 20-some years ago. And frankly, the questions that were asked in there, we kept the same questions. We just described better what we're looking for when that comes up. And so that's what the rest of the ink is on there. It really, there was no attempt to try to get rid of any language within there. It was just a matter of trying to make it more readable and say what we're looking for. So that's a summary. The two amendments that were made from initially put online versus what the Planning Commission made two amendments at the public hearing in response to a couple of questions that were brought up. And it was on, you got to find the section here. Oh, with the Planning Commission in Chapter 40301, which would be on, I believe, page 5. The 5th page. Sorry, there are no page numbers. And that section was amended to say the Board of County Commissioners shall appoint a planning commission of 7 members, at least 1 member, but not more than 2 of which shall be a member of the Board of County Commissioners. State law requires on an appointed planning commission that you have at least 1 member of the planning commission be a county commissioner, and some concern was brought up about checks and balances if we run into a scenario where the county commission said, well, maybe it's easier to have 3-4 of us sitting on there. We wanted to just basically put ourselves on a diet, make sure that that's what it amounts to. So that's what it was.
Question, Luke, on that. So if a member, county commissioner member is sitting in the audience and they're 1 person short and there's 2 persons on the board already, does that make that illegal?
Sitting on the planning commission, it would be.
Versus the
Board of Adjustment.
The Board of Adjustment, then they could in that case. And again, that's the difference between that is the judicial nature of it versus the legislative. I mean, you're essentially voting on the same thing twice at the planning commission at that point. But for what it's worth, and this is something that just kind of from a practical standpoint that I'll tell you, just sitting in meetings, as I read through this, I guess I was aware, but it hadn't really dawned on me. Sitting on the planning commission, we don't have alternates to the planning commission, technically by ordinance. So they don't get to sit up. We're not supposed to have you vote on those sorts of items if you're sitting up there in that portion. So planning commission wouldn't, it would be the Board of Adjustment. So that's what that change was. The other one was just simply a typo, which I was glad someone brought to our attention. So I want to make one point just procedurally here, because this is the first of what I anticipate to be about 7 or 8 of these ordinances coming down the line over the next 12 months. And I just kind of want to point out, there's been some court cases in the last handful of years that have really outlined and specified how this process has to go. Obviously, this has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. I'm not going to get into the process before it gets to you. But at the vote, you've got the choice as a county commissioners to approve as recommended by the Planning Commission, to deny the ordinance as recommended by the Planning Commission. If you think that the Planning Commission flat out got something wrong within it, you'd propose an amendment. And after the second, though, you would need to immediately postpone any action on that amendment until a public hearing could be held on the amendment itself. That could be done solely at the county commission level, if that's the case, and if in that instance. Otherwise, if you are not sure if the Planning Commission considered something enough, if they vetted a topic enough, the process would likely be, and I guess the process I would recommend, is that you would you'd propose that amendment at the county commission.
At the planning commission.
Sorry, let me say this again. If you propose an amendment, I said that wrong. If you propose an amendment, you'd propose it. After the second, you'd postpone it. When it comes up for a vote, though, after a public hearing with the county commission, it requires a 2/3 majority vote for that amendment. If you, like I said, if you think that the Planning Commission hasn't vetted something enough, but it's still in front of you here at the County Commission, then what you could do is you could kick that back and say we'd like to have we'd like you to weigh in on this amendment that we're proposing before you vote on it, and then you'd come back and then you'd vote on it. My suggestion, if you do that, is that so that everyone hears the same thing, that would be done at the next planning commission meeting as a joint meeting, that the county commission would sit there as well so that everyone hears the same thing. Or if you've got something to be heard, you want to sit there with them and you can have that conversation at that point. That way we're not playing volleyball with one topic. I've seen that in towns where they wind up doing that, and it gets to be a headache. An example that we've seen, Brookings County recently had a case like this where they weren't sure if the planning commission had weighed in, and they just kicked it back. In that case, they didn't sit jointly, but they got the point across in doing that, saying, hey, would you like to look at that? So that's just kind of want to lay that out. I don't know if that'll be the case on this ordinance, but just kind of wanted to lay that process out for you.
I have a question, Luke. If that is the case and there is another hearing, how many of these things need to be re-advertised?
The amendment itself.
Okay.
Okay, so my suggestion on that would be that you're going to hold your public hearing, you're going to gather all your input, and then you're going to close the public hearing, and then if you've got an amendment to make, then you'll make that amendment after the public hearing is closed, and then you'd re-advertise on the amendment itself. It wouldn't open up the whole...
Not the whole
can.
ordinance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just another question. So if you did a joint meeting, if you went back to that, in that process, and you did a joint meeting with the planning commission and the county commissioners, would it be just one public hearing? You wouldn't have to do...
Yes.
So okay.
Yes.
So it's speed it up that way, too.
And we used to, we used to handle things as joint public hearings.
Right.
As we handled these, and from a staff standpoint, I prefer those because it's only one-time prep. It's hearing everything once. However, we did get questions, concerns from folks that said that, well, you're only getting one bite at the apple. It feels like you're rushing it. And so that's where we've gone to this process of doing two of them. However, in a case where, to avoid the ping pong match going back and forth about it, that's where I think you do that. The other thing, obviously, is, and what a lot of you commissioners have been doing is showing up to those meetings and being able to hear what's being said. And if you've got something you think that they should bring up, I'm sure the chair would recognize you and say, hey, what do you think about that? Is there something you want to add to this? So that would be my first course of advice. But anyway, that's probably more than this ordinance.
Okay. And the reason that we started with this ordinance, because it is probably a less controversial ordinance. We only had the two issues that we dealt with, and one was more of a typographical error than the other, and the other one was just brought to our attention, which was good. So that being said, we would open it up to the public hearing at this time. And that being said, if you wish to speak to this ordinance, we would like to have you step forward and give us your name, who you represent, give you 3-4 minutes, something in that area. Is there anyone? Is there anyone here today that would like to speak to this ordinance during this public hearing? Is there anyone that would like to speak to ordinance 67? If it sounds like I'm very cautious about doing this, I am. I don't want anything to come back and bite us later. I want to make certain that this is done appropriately. So, is there anyone, the last call, that wishes to publicly speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at this time. That being said, then, do any commissioners have any questions in reference to this ordinance?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor to approve ordinance 67 and a second, a motion by Hatton, a second by Gable. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have passed ordinance 67. So, on to the next 7 or 8, or what do we have left?
So Luke, you'll send me the final without the draft, and then what do I have to publish?
We're going to be publishing
The whole thing?
notice with the whole thing.
Okay,
Just to be,
Yep.
let's make sure we're doing it right.
sounds good.
And then
Yep.
after that, this will be the portion we sign with all the strike through and underline, and we'll keep, that's the one we'll keep on record.
Okay,
And
Do you want to take that draft watermark off?
That's exactly what I'll do.
Okay, and then, so once the ordinance is published, it comes effective 10 days, 20 days after publication.
Yep.
Okay, so everybody knows. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Luke. Appreciate the help. Very much appreciated. Let's go on then to monthly reports. Auditor, what you got for us today?
We are pretty much shifting into election gear. We will be contacting people to serve on our election boards. We will have 2 ballots to deal with in Cottington County. We will have a non-political ballot. That's for everybody who is not registered Republican. The non-political ballot is the legislature's, the change they're making to Marcy's Law, which we voted in the last general election. And the Republicans then will have their candidate ballot, plus Marcy's Law will also be on their ballot. So it's hard to determine how many people will turn out. I mean, I expect the Republicans to have a good turnout because they have a governor race and some local races. But how to estimate how many people are going to turn out to vote on that Marcy's Law issue is kind of hard, so we have to err on the side of caution and order enough ballots, which we probably won't use. But so we're working on that. We're waiting for the ballot proofs actually to come from the printer so we can sign off on those and get everything moving. And then there is a school election today in Cottington County in Henry. So we had to have the office open at 7 a.m. this morning. We'll have to stay open till 7 p.m. tonight because we have the master voter registration list if they should have any problems with anything. So somebody will be on staff here from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. tonight. Otherwise, just business as usual, normal things, paying bills, payroll, and that type of stuff.
Okay, any questions?
I do. When does early voting start for the primaries?
Early voting starts a week from Friday if our ballots are available. There have been a few issues with the printing company.
What day is
That
that?
would be the 20th.
It's Friday.
April 20th.
Yep, it's Friday. It's a Friday.
Yeah.
We're working out the kinks to make sure we all have all the correct wording on our ballots and all the correct. The Republican ballot has to have a tan-colored stripe. The non-political ballot doesn't have a stripe. There are a lot of election laws to follow and stay in compliance with to make sure our wording is all uniform. So,
Okay, good. Let's go on then. Nurses. Good morning again. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, our biggest thing, 2 big things. Carla is retiring. Her last day will be April 20th. Cat is out of the bag on that one. Throughout the region, there are going to be several nurses coming up at least 1 day a week to help. So that'll be covered until they get some. The state people were here yesterday because Carla has been with the state for 39 years. So they celebrated that yesterday. And they're saying the position has been opening, but there's not a lot of interest at this point yet. So anybody can promote it to any nurse. Would be helpful. Other things, Carla and I were out when it was nicer and went out to some more businesses. We did meet with both clinics since January just to kind of promote what we're doing and what we have going on. They participated in that Healthy Youth Coalition at LATI again. This is the 3rd time we've been over there. I've been working with LATI. There's a video, and I can't remember the name. It's a little movie on the impact of HPV. So we're going to try to get that in this fall to Lake area. It's very powerful. The gal that is one of the characters in the movie spoke to us last year at our biannual conference, and she's very, very informative. So they're going to try to get the movie. They have an offer for a free screening of that. Other things, POD is starting again. We are going to do POD again. We're going to do one at Lake area where they're going to do the college students any age, and then I think we're going to use our secondary site of the high school. So we're going to meet there and kind of update that plan. That'll all be on October 4th.
October 4th?
Yes.
You hold both of them in conjunction at the same time?
No, the lake area will be earlier during the day, and then the high school will be starting at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And then we'll have our travel teams again that go to like Clark, Willow Lake, Henry.
It was pretty successful last year.
It was. We had a good turnout, so we're hoping to have even bigger numbers this year because we can do any age college student. As long as you have a college ID, you can get a free flu vaccine.
Well, I think a couple of years ago, the issue was insurance. That kind of played into some of that.
Yeah, so we're hoping by doing these pods, we still get a bigger population.
Good.
And then just our numbers. I think that's it.
And you moved.
And we moved. It was pretty seamless. We're still waiting on signage, so people are driving back and forth, even though we say we're kitty corner from the fire station. That just doesn't get it.
So how many times have you gone to the wrong place?
I have not yet.
You've not gone to the wrong
No.
place yet?
It's pretty
After
easy.
several years, it's sometimes hard to make that switch.
Yep, signage, we're waiting on final approval from the state to get that up, so I'm not sure how long that will take. And then we have some phone issues, and they're working on that. They were in yesterday to do the panic alarms, so I think we're good.
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 Nice space.
It's a beautiful space.
Yeah.
The Taj Mahal of WIC offices.
We're all jealous. You're going to get
It'd be
nurses
nice.
that will come now.
I'm hoping.
Any questions?
It's not really the Taj Mahal, just so people know.
Just so you know, it's really not that fancy.
So that reminds me, how,
Facility, yeah, that's right.
are we going to be billed for the monthly rent? How is that gonna,
That's supposed to be, yeah, we're supposed to be.
is he supposed to be sending us a bill?
No, I can call the landlord just to make sure
Okay,
that's.
because I don't recall that we're paying.
Yeah, we don't want to be evicted, so we need to double check that.
I guess I'm not sure how that was supposed to be set up.
Yeah.
It's just when
I'll
you're
call him.
working
Okay.
under space constraints for so long, and then you finally get into something that's a little bigger and have little space, it's quite a change for
It is quite a change.
Windows
And windows,
lots of
yeah.
windows.
I think just for clarification, because there is someone out there that will hound us about going out and renting property. Well, it always happens. Actually, we're relocating the nursing department from the courthouse because of the renovation and the remodeling in the courthouse. It's not because we just thought it was time to do something, but actually it ended up it was time to do something. And anyway, they moved to this facility. And what's the address of that facility?
104 First Avenue, Northwest.
West, yeah.
For us farm boys, it's across the street from Mel Dolly Tire is where it's at.
Yes.
And or across the street and a little bit east of the fire station, downtown fire station. We have no twines to hang on any corner posts, so we can go buy twine strings on corner posts. We have to go that way, so good. That being said, are there any other questions? And if you have any issues with those two things that you have, just be sure and let us know. And we'll get them taken care of, and good luck, and enjoy your new pad.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
All right, next thing on the agenda is our annual conference with the Director of Equalization per South Dakota Codified Law 10-3-14. Boy, this is official now. And we're going to take number 7.
Thank you.
Oops, no, we're not. That's the only one. I was thinking you had a couple of them
Thanks.
here. What are you doing?
Thank you.
No.
This is just a sheet that lets you guys know what we did with all the different neighborhoods in town, the residential, commercial neighborhoods, how they changed per neighborhood. What we did with, we didn't actually change any of the small acreages out in the county this year. We are planning on starting a county-wide reappraisal. We will be doing the small acreages and the ag together as we go. I am assuming it's probably going to take us around 4 years to complete the whole thing, but it's really going to depend on how long it takes to get to the properties and further ones away, and some of the egg properties are going to take a day to do, so we really don't have the best idea yet of how long that'll take, but we'll get a pretty good idea this summer. We'll be starting out in the townships closer to Watertown and then working our way out. We did the small towns this summer. That was a total of about 965 parcels. Local boards went fairly well. I think Wallace had a few changes that their board did, but most of the other towns didn't really have a lot of appeals and knew that their values were probably going up. And so that actually went pretty well.
Some probably went down with some of the...
Sometimes, yeah, I don't know. We don't really pay attention to the percent, but some go down, some go up, but none of them actually stay the exact same value. It just really depends on what they were at before. Our ag land did go up this year. It was approximately 3.5% increase overall countywide. It stayed the same last year, but then went up that 3.5% this year. We did a total of 908 building permits. The appraisers went out and looked at this year, and that's for county and Watertown. And then we had a total of 77 new houses in the county and in Watertown. I think there was 18 out in townships, 18 new houses.
Now that increase in the ag land, that'll show up next year.
That was on their assessments this year.
On their assessment
Yep.
this year.
Yep, all of these changes are for the 2018 assessments. And then on the back, there's just the map showing how we have Watertown broken out into the residential neighborhoods and the commercial neighborhoods. So you can kind of see where those increases were put into play.
That being said, this afternoon at 1 o'clock, we will re-adjourn as a commission to hear the appeals from the rural.
Yes, we have county boards at 1 p.m. We have 2 appeals scheduled for there. The consolidated boards will start at 6:30 over at City Hall. We have 7 appeals, but 4 appellants, 3 residential, and then 4 land-only commercial from the same appellant.
Okay, all right. So that's our marathon for today.
That is the marathon for today.
Okay, any questions for Shauna? Any questions on any of this?
I do have, Mr. Chairman.
Go.
We got a 3.5% increase in ag land with the depressed prices, and when I'm talking to farmers out there, I'd like a further explanation on that 3.5% increase.
The increase actually comes from the Department of Revenue, and they send us our numbers every year. It's based on productivity. It's a 7-year average, so it depends on if they're having problems this year. It's going to take 3 years for it to get through, but we have no say in what those top dollars change to. It's all sent from the Department of Revenue, and they get all their numbers from SDSU.
Thank you.
And those of us representing the ag land, ag areas, I know they'll all be concerned with commodity prices the way they are, but a lot of politics involved in that. And here again, this is a directive from the Department of Revenue, so.
Oh, and that's why I wanted that explanation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
There's nothing that we do to alter that. It's all done off from productivity
done
and a
off of
7-year
productivity.
basis.
Yep.
All right. Good questions, though. anything else? Any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna.
See you this afternoon at 1. All right, number 7 then is the action to approve the auditor's account with the treasurer and note registered deeds fees, and that is in your packet as well.
So as of the last day of March 2018, we counted $138,971.65 in cash. For that business day, the report also shows you that we have total cash assets of $19,494,484.43. Of that amount, a little over $1 million belongs to the schools, townships, and cities and towns in the county for property tax collection. And it also shows you where the general ledger cash balances are between the general fund, special revenue funds, which would be the highway, emergency management, domestic abuse, WIC, crime victims, 24/7. Those are all lumped into special revenue. And then the trust and agency funds is basically money that does not belong to the county, but we hold it in trust to pay it out to somebody else sometime during the month.
That's just
Pass-through dollars.
pass-through
Pass
money.
through. And then the Register of Deeds statement of fees for the month of March were collections of $28,253.50.
Make a
Move
motion
to
to
approve.
approve.
We have a motion by Van Duzen, second by Hanton. Any discussion? Any discussion, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next item on here, item 8, action to approve the 2018 fees for weed chemicals and hourly rates. Steve isn't here this
Steve
morning.
could not be here. I got an email this morning that he could not be here today, but this is something that Department of Legislative Audit requires that we do to adopt the amounts that Steve will charge for townships and counties, or state and city and private, how much for the actual product, and then man hours also.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Hatton, a second by
Second it.
Gable. Any discussion? Our liaison to the weed department is Commissioner Waterman. Did you review these with Steve?
Yes, so I was talking to Steve the other night at the meeting, and everything seems to be in order.
Okey-doke. Any other discussion?
We did just have a contract with the state, so I'm sure that amount is in there.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on to number 9, action to set a tax deed property auction for June 19th, 2018.
The treasurer has taken a number of properties by tax deed proceedings, so we do have a number to sell. We decided to wait until after the primary election was over, so we wouldn't be running into a number of things all at once. So she would like the sale to take place on June 19th. It will be on the front steps of the courthouse. The sheriff has quite often acted as the auctioneer for us. At this time, I don't know how many properties there are, and we just have to advertise the sale, and we do have to appoint someone to appraise all the properties. Previously, we have used the recommendations from the Director of Equalization. So we can either do that, or we can appoint 3 real property owners to go out and look at these properties and see what they think they're worth. And that's where our starting bid would be, with whatever price they come up with for the property. So we just need action today to set the auction date, and we'll take care of the incidentals between now and then.
I'll make the motion to set.
Motion by Van Duzen, second by Waterman. Any discussion? And my conversation with Carol, I think there's 4 probably. I think 3 or 4.
At least.
3 or 4.
At least, and they're scattered around the county.
Yep.
And those will be publicized when we get to
Yes.
that.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yep.
You bet. Any else? Anything else? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All same sign. We have the date set. Then number 10 is action to authorize request for proposal for installing update fire suppression and fire alarm system for the basement and ground floor of the courthouse. And remember, probably within the last month, Milo had reported that it was suggested that we have this done, have an estimate or a request for proposal, RFP, to sprinkle or put the sprinklers in. Milo, you want to come on up and fill us in on this, or are you all right?
I can.
There's a packet, it's in your packet,
Yeah, we are probably more versed in this subject than I am.
all right, well, between you and Lee,
Yeah, we'll
fill
cover
us
these.
in.
Oh, just real quick, do you want to, there's two components to this, Mr. Chairman. One is the fire alarm system. You want to cover that one, Milo? And then I'll talk about the sprinklers.
Okay, the fire alarm system itself, we requested a quote outside of the building remodel project. And that would tie in, we would use the same brains, the same system we currently have in the detention center, but tie in this building. Okay, so that's the fire alarm system.
So what you're talking about is the control panel or box or whatever?
Control panel and, you know, we'll have to add an enunciator and, you know,
Different zones.
various things. It would be, if you combine a alarm system with a sprinkler system, they work in conjunction with each other, so you can, it needs to be designed a little bit different, put it that way. So we're
and so
requesting the design with that in mind.
So two separate things. This is that the fire inspector has been very helpful with this process, and so he suggested doing it separately. So fire alarms for one piece of the project, or a separate project technically that Milo just talked about, and that we're looking at just getting a quote, and if it fits under the requirements where we don't need to bid it, and that we can make use of the fact that we have a current contractor in the jail. And then on the sprinkler side, we need to advertise that. So, however, I'm going to make a move to postpone this one until next week because I want to make sure that we don't, currently this is formatted as an RFP, a request for proposals. Just want to make sure that we don't need to do it as an advertisement for bids, so a bit of a different format. We can still make the timelines if we do it next week, but the guts of it are basically the same. It'd be how it's formatted, and so. And the basic idea is to sprinkle the ground floor where the remodel is taking place and the basement below it. And then this would have an alternate as well, just to sprinkle the rest of the courthouse as a separate part of that bid, so that we could take that part or leave it depending on what the cost was. And if we leave it, then the fire inspector strongly suggested that we kind of phase in over the years sprinkling the entire courthouse. And
so your suggestion is to propose to postpone it till next week?
Yeah.
Now, is that with the fire alarm system as well as the sprinkling system?
No, just for the sprinkling.
Okay, so we could should we act on the...
We didn't make any motions, so can we just put it on next week, so do we have to do the formal?
Well, I think for the action for this fire alarm system, Mr. Chairman, might be, do we need to do, if you're just going to need to obtain a quote for now, and then if we take them up on it, and if it meets all the other requirements where we don't need to bid that part of the project, then.
So we don't need to take any action on that then?
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
But it's there to go.
Everybody good with that? Understand what we're doing?
So, all
right.
So the motion is to postpone. So.
Yes. And we'll put it on the agenda for next week.
Do we have to vote on the motion?
Second that.
We have a motion by Hatton, a motion by Gable, second by Hatton. Any discussion?
But we didn't, well, okay.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. What was it you were saying, Brendan?
Well, we didn't really take any action to authorize a request for proposal, so I don't know that we need to formally make a motion to postpone because we didn't do any action on it, so it just gets moved to next week.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know that we need that in there.
You might be right.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor to move it to next week.
We voted for it, too.
Yeah.
And we voted, so,
Yeah, so it's official now.
And Milo has the authorization to secure quotes for the fire alarm system.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
All right, let's go on to number 11, action to approve Cottington County Safety Manual. And Milo was kind of leading the charge on that, along with a group of his...
Okay, everybody should have received a copy of that updated safety manual. I hope I emailed that to everybody. That's been the short version of this. We started out with 40 some odd pages and condensed it down to about 20. Rick Small from the Highway Department, Jim Sutton from Emergency Management, Sheriff Howell, Commissioner Van Dusen, Commissioner Johnson, and myself worked on this project. We believe we come up with a workable document, a workable manual there. At this point, if everyone's had a chance to review it to their satisfaction, you know, I think we've looked for typos and that kind of stuff, so we're...
And this came at the recommendation of Safety Benefits.
Correct.
Who recommended the county have a safety manual in place, so.
And we will notify them once it's been adopted and
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the Cottington County Safety Manual.
We have a motion by Van Dusen,
I'll second
and a
it.
second by Hatton. Any more discussion?
Did you have a chance to look at it?
We really did work it over pretty hard. Cut her back, so we thought somebody sat down and had a 40-page instrument placed in front of them, they probably wouldn't even open it up, but maybe this is a little bit more tolerable, and I think we hit all
The
the...
next question I might have for discussion, or maybe,
better vote first
okay,
Okay,
before we get off track. Is it, or is it part of?
concerning this.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
yeah.
If this is approved, then we'll have to put it on somebody's shoulders to, you know, have this put together, printed out, you know, put into a booklet form or whatever, and I would assume the board would want this to go to every Cottington County employee.
I think that's how it's written in the safety manual, isn't it? That every employee will receive a copy of it and then sign a form saying that they receive and understand
And then it will
the
just
copy that they
become-
obtain.
It'll just become part of the new
Personnel file.
employee.
That probably becomes what, an auditor job then?
It'll be part of the new employee part, but yeah, we will send out a copy to each current employee and have them sign off on it and put it in their personnel file. And then it will become part of the new employee packet.
Would it be possible, would it be prudent, could we do that, do a digital version of that and have that go out to the employees? You know, just
The only problem with that is that they have to sign the form saying that they received a copy of it. I guess you could do it digitally, but
Yeah.
it would be nice if they
Yeah,
had
we could send it out digitally. I don't know if does every employee
Yeah,
have email? If they don't, we can
Probably
print a
not.
copy. You're right.
you know, just an idea
And
for
it
the
probably
next
would
step.
be a good idea to give them a hard copy to start with.
Something in their hand.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
yep.
Yeah.
But you're going to need that signature
Definitely.
that would go in their file, correct?
right, I mean, yeah.
You could just...
That way we
put a
just make
signature
sure that
page.
they received it. And
Yep,
that's
all right.
good. How many total county employees do we
It'll
have?
be 80 to 90 for
Okay.
full-time. I don't know.
Yeah, and we
Seasonal
had
or
discussed,
temporary,
in
I
order,
don't know.
in order to comply with the safety benefits directives, they want temporary employees to
Okay,
have
all
that,
right.
part-time employees.
I don't think we need to worry about our board members, like planning, weed.
No.
Yeah, I would
about
agree.
them,
I
but,
think, you know, the
they're not
part-time
salaried other
include
than
like the
mileage.
part-time
Okay.
jailers and the park
Part-time
workers.
correctional officers, travel, deputies, yeah, everybody, okay.
The department heads should have,
Then
maybe,
it'll be over 100, for sure.
department heads should have extra copies available, so if they hire at part-time, they would have,
Well,
that
no,
would be
they'll
part
still
of
have to
their-
go through us.
Yeah,
that would
all
still be-
new
They'll
hires.
still go through us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Part-time hires will go through us, so, yeah, we'll,
now, Commissioner Van Dusen, you and I sat on that committee, and the question was, is who's going to take the bull by the horns now and run with it? We discussed that a little bit there, didn't we, at our committee meetings?
We did, and I thought it was Milo?
I kind of thought that way too, but I wanted you to take the...
That was in the form of a question, as much of a statement. But
Milo's done a lot of work on this, and he's probably the most qualified to take this thing forward. At least getting the first meeting put together with the group that we've designated.
Could that be HR when he gets back and Milo's a part of that?
it's actually specified in the manual, the
That
safety
they elected
coordinator and
chair
stuff.
of
So
that committee. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that, didn't we talk about having the safety committee elect a
correct. Chair.
safety coordinator, and
Yeah.
then would therefore thereafter be approved by the board, I
Yep.
believe?
it'll have to go
Yes.
through the minutes, so do you know when you want to do that? The action to appoint a safety coordinator?
Well, I think the first step was to get the manual in place, and now that we're voting on that, once we vote to approve that, then I think we could probably move forth with setting a date to organize a meeting, right?
Okay.
So that's
That'd be my recommendation.
down the road for right now.
So we have a motion and a second, we need to vote.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries. We do have a safety manual now. Thank you, Milo.
Thanks for your work on that, Milo.
Thanks, Milo.
And he did a lot of work on it. He and Jim Sutton really did do quite a bit of work on that project. Number 12, action to approve abatement applications. We
None
have
today, none today.
none today. Good. 13, action to approve claims for payment.
We have a total of
You have it in your packet.
$754,134.76 in claims that we are paying. Of that amount, $271,271.49 is going to the state of South Dakota, mostly for motor vehicle collections in the month of March, leaving the county bills at just over $286,865.27, which is a normal amount for this time of year. It's low. We don't have any projects going yet. And on page 1, I highlighted an item in the commissioner's budget, and that is for a lawsuit that was filed against us. We have a $5,000 deductible, and this is our bill to the attorneys that represented us. That suit has been closed. Let's see, on page 4, in the court-appointed attorney section, you can see we have one claim for $25,820.63. That claim will qualify for the clerk program, so we will be assembling the costs for this defendant for his attorney fees and the amount of time he spent in jail. We can also submit that to clerk for reimbursement. We have to pay the first $25,000, and then we'll get 90% of everything that we pay over that from clerk. It does have to go before the review board, though, so we have to have itemized bills for the review board to look at before they'll consider giving us any reimbursement.
That's that catastrophic fund.
Catastrophic legal expense reimbursement
Cindy, just for
program.
clarification, you said we're responsible for the first $25,000?
$25,000.
So that's basically the deductible on the insurance
Yep.
policy? Yeah.
Yep, and then they'll pay us 90% of everything over that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And
Is
the
that
jail
on a
time, the jail time for that individual was also over $20,000.
Commissioner Waterman, question?
Yeah, question, Mr. Chairman. Not on this particular item,
Okay.
but is that $25,000 deductible per case or per year? Or
Per incident.
Per incident, yep, per
case.
Yep.
And the other question I had was on the first item that was marked on page number 1.
Yep.
Who was the attorney fees on that? Who was the attorneys on
The
that?
attorney is somebody that was hired by Claims Associates. I don't recall their names. They're not local.
Okay.
I believe they were out of Aberdeen, and ask me after the meeting and I can show you they represent us. They have represented us multiple times for different cases.
I think we're on 9 now, page 8.
Okay. On page 8.
Behavioral.
I just want to point out that's an error. It does not come out of the welfare budget. It should come out of that new budget. Those are the inmate mental health screenings that we do monthly. And we need to get the voucher that's submitted to us has the account number pre-printed on it. And that's what we keep picking up. We just need to fix that account number.
So, Mr. Chairman, sorry, Cindy, are you talking about the Lutheran Social Services?
Yes.
That one I think is supposed to be welfare.
I think it's...
Because HSA is the one that's in the jail.
Okay, then maybe, hopefully I'll have to go back and check with Debbie.
Yeah.
Maybe we've corrected something that we should not have.
So this,
I'll look at it.
yeah.
Okay, you're right. It should have been Human Service Agency, and I don't think they got their bill submitted to us in time to be paid this month. They didn't. Okay, I'll double check on that one. You could be right.
Oh, HSA is up in top page 9.
And that's just our quarterly
Yep.
appropriations for the Human Service Agency and our payment to Serenity Hills.
Yeah, so that's not the...
That's not
That's
the
not it, no.
evals, yeah.
Not services.
On page 10, there's our annual allocation to the Lake Area Zoological Society in the amount of $20,000, which you have budgeted for them. On page 12, we're paying the First District Association $10,125, and that was for our PDM plan, and we will get grant reimbursement for either all or a portion of that. I can't remember how much. Also on page 12, the Beacon Center. That is the amount that we have collected from fees, domestic violence fees and marriage license fees, which according to law, we can designate to a facility such as the Beacon Center, and the board has done that. So we're paying them $1,679.97 for the first quarter of 2018. And that's the only things that I kind of picked out. If there's something else you have a question on.
Need a motion
Move
to
to
approve.
approve those
Motion
claims.
by Hatton, second by Gable. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Budget supplements this month.
Nothing today.
And personnel changes, there are a couple.
And I've had a couple come in since I sent your packets out, but they're all anniversary
Okay.
step increases. The first one is Lindy Waba. Lindy Waba is the second deputy in the treasurer's office. She's due a step increase to step 12, $20.07 an hour. Steve Molengrath is the weed supervisor. He's due a step increase to step 12, $21.66 an hour. John Engels is a seasonal weed sprayer, and he's being moved to step 6, $16.19 an hour, based on his experience. Tom Stanley is also a seasonal sprayer, and he'll be at step 3, $14.79 an hour. Jeff Schneckenberg is seasonal maintenance at Memorial Park. He'll be at step 1, $13.97 an hour. Kayla Showmaker is a correctional officer in the detention center. She's due her step increase to step 4, $19.28 an hour, and then her anniversary date will be November 15th. So we will be back paying her a little bit because she was part-time, and then she met the hours to advance. And Doug Torstensen, which I did not get out in your packets because it just came yesterday, is maintenance 2 at the highway department. He'll go to step 4, $19.30 an hour. And Lynn Solberg, maintenance 2, step 4, $19.30 an hour at the highway department.
All right, you heard personnel changes. Motion to accept by Gable, second by Van Duzen. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Travel requests, we have a couple in there for that.
Yep, just a couple, and it are both clerical employees for the WIC and Community Health Office, and it's a meeting, right in town, but per our policy, these are all supposed to come before the board in case there's any reimbursement that would come to them for meals or anything like that.
And there they are. Motion?
And they are attending a mental health first aid training.
Motion by Gable, second by Waterman. Any discussion? Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go on to mature business. Is there any old business to bring before the board today?
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things.
Mr. Gable.
One, just a reminder, the CCJAC meeting is this week at Thursday evening, 6:10 at LATI, as usual. So that was, we postponed it a couple times, so this will be right after the bid opening tomorrow, and so that's another piece of old business. Just a reminder that the bid opening for the courthouse remodel is tomorrow, the 11th, at 2:05. So 2 o'clock will, what do we say here? 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, I think.
I thought it was 2:05.
Yeah, 2:05, then we'll convene. So the bids are due at 2.
Yep.
So, yeah, so that's why.
Okay.
So, and that's tomorrow in this room.
Any other old business?
I guess, well, I don't know if we do it for the open. Lee and I did meet with the city again, and ongoing discussions of working together on
Yeah, and how's that
public
going?
buildings. It's moving along.
It's moving along, but it's a slow process. It's a
yeah.
matter of kind of brainstorming possible ways in which we can cooperate in city facilities and the, county facilities, especially the jail. And so trying to find out places where we can do that. At times, you have to talk to a property owner, say, is it okay if we think about your property? So that's that kind of thing that we want to give, respect to the
It's ongoing.
and stuff. So it's, yeah. Okay.
At least we have cooperation, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Working together.
I did attend South Dakota Retirement and quarterly meeting out at Pier on last Thursday. The fund is chugging right along. We're still in the black. But it's a roller coaster ride if you follow the markets at all. It's crazy, absolutely crazy, and just thank goodness that thing is very well funded. We're all right. We're doing fine, and I guess probably the big news is down the road here we will be getting a new executive director. Our executive director will be retiring, Rob Wiley, after 30 plus years on the job or something like that. It's going to be a lot of big shoes to fill, but that's a big job. Probably something that, when we talk about South Dakota retirement, it affects a lot of people in Cottington County and a lot of money. Last fiscal year, 2017, we returned $16.6 million just to Cottington County alone from the retirement fund. So about everybody, you can look around anywhere you're at, and you know somebody that is a state retiree and receiving benefits from that. Statewide, just to give you an idea, every month there's a check written in retirement funds for just shy of $24 million to retirees in South Dakota. Every month, $24 million. So it kind of keeps the old South Dakota economy rolling, and so it's very important.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
You said the state is $24 million and Cottington County is $16 million?
No, $16 million in the year.
Oh, the year.
Fiscal
Okay.
year 2017.
Thank you.
But to give you an idea, Brookings County, just down the road here, they have $34 million is what was returned to them in 2017. They got a lot of those high-dollar college professors, that are retired, so that's why it's a lot bigger. But some of the counties are big dollars, so.
Is there a report anywhere that you can see that information?
Yep.
The detail?
Just a little clarification.
Yeah, it would just be
Yep.
interesting to look at it.
If you go on South Dakota, just Google South Dakota Retirement,
Okay.
and it's all there.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you'll get more numbers than you can shake a hat.
Well, I've looked at it before for my annual report. I need to go.
Currently,
back
the
to
fund is just north of $12 billion. That's with a B now, $1 billion. So when I sit at these board meetings, I do count zeros. It's a lot of money, lots of money, very, very good. It's rated as the #1 state retirement fund in the nation. So it's our mission to keep it that way. And that's why I'm on that board. And Elmer was on that board as chair for many, many years, and when he was defeated in election, he had to step down, and that would happen in my case too. If I'm defeated, I'd have to step down, and we would have no one at the seat in Cottington County.
I believe Commissioner Ralph Mack was on the board prior to Elmer being on it too, so Cottington County's had somebody on that board for a number of years.
Yeah. So currently, I'm the eyes and the ears and the voice of Cottington County on that board, so keep that in mind. All right, ain't no business. No business.
Something I guess I'd just like to give everyone a heads up. You will be getting invitations, or maybe you already have. The Volunteer Center's annual fundraiser is May 8th. It's the hors d'oeuvres extravaganza. It's at 2nd Street Station. I didn't write the time, but it's usually around that 6 o'clock time. I'd be more specific. But anyway, yeah, May 8th. I'll be mentioning it again when we get closer.
Extravaganza.
Yep, and that is the annual fundraiser for them, so it'd be great for everyone to turn out.
So All right, anything else for new business?
Just FYI, Mr. Chairman, so I have a clerk, I'm on the clerk, the catastrophic legal reimbursement, so that we have a meeting on Monday. It's a phone meeting from around, different commissioners from around the state, so just FYI.
Okay. Open. Milo, you want to step up here, and Milo has some things for us for the open here. I asked him if he would come back and share with us some things.
Sorry.
Thank you for doing
You may
that.
have to turn it on, Milo. I don't know if it's on or off. Here. Just press and hold the red button down. There you go.
Okay, I don't think we need anything in the form of a motion here or anything. I would just like a recommendation for our situation out at Memorial Park right now. Currently, we have 3 people and myself manning the phone, for the designated hours from 10 a.m. through 7 p.m., 7 days a week. Since we got by the first week, past the kind of the Memorial Day crunch, people looking for those sites for the initial start of the season, the phone calls have dropped off considerably. We're still getting 2, 3, 4 a day, I suppose, but I just wanted your opinion if you wanted to continue to man the phone those hours, so you have a voice answering the phone, or you would be okay with maybe shortening those hours and utilizing the answering machine more. Just looking for your opinion here.
If you call for a reservation, would you like to talk to a real person or a answering machine is what it boils down to?
Well, if they leave their name,
You'll eventually
you will still
get a
call
real
them
person.
back.
Yeah,
And then-
eventually you get a
yeah.
real person.
Right.
This is just in the interim while we're recruiting, a park manager.
Has an answering machine been used in the past?
Yeah, it has.
We're talking 4 hours a day, or 4 calls a day average, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, probably.
At what cost per, what's the cost on this per
Well,
hour? How many hours are we hiring to answer these 4 calls? And we're not in a profit mode on this park anyway.
Right.
It's a break-even situation, so.
I don't think it's break even.
Not even break even.
So we're
Where can we
talking,
cut some costs?
I
would say an
10
answer
hours a
machine.
day. We're actually utilizing county employees for a significant portion of those hours, so we're not paying out any extra.
Is this not something that, with the cell phone stipend that we're paying some county employees now, couldn't we have that line roll over to a cell phone?
And
could be
that was
answered?
discussed also. Actually, one of the people that had volunteered to go out there, a county employee, said we could, roll over, have the call forwarding come to her phone.
Yeah.
We would have to set up and put the computer system,
Okay.
available to them.
Right.
But
Well, at the very least,
that
they
would
could-
be
they could
available
take the call
during
and
working hours anyhow.
That would
Be
be
a
a good
person.
suggestion. Let's at least limit it to 8 to 5.
Yeah.
Working hours, and then
After
whatever you
working-
think.
Then
After
it's,
working hours, we could have put a cost per call, so much per call that was received.
Then it would just answering machine would pick it up and then take
just
care of
call
it the
them
next
back.
day again.
Well, what do you think would work the best? I mean, you're the one who
Right.
knows the situation.
Yeah. By having the calls call forwarded, then we're running at a little bit of a risk for keeping the 2 separate computers networked, which leads to double booking and
Yes.
whatnot. So there's a little bit of a concern there. Also, if we were to man the phones physically, like from 5 to 7 or something, now we have to figure out how to network those computers from what happened at 5 o'clock. So I guess I'm not totally comfortable call forwarding the phones. It's,
Just answering machine.
Yeah.
it just kind of comes,
Just
boils
put in
down
order
to
them when they came in.
Yep.
So
customer
at
relation.
the height of reservation booking season, what are we looking at for calls per day?
I can't tell you that. I've never been out
Okay.
there. Just for a matter of record, that could help towards this. Our last deposit that I just turned in yesterday for the last 2-week period was in excess of $8,000. Of course, a portion of that was online also.
Yeah.
I mean, we did take in a considerable amount of money.
I'm just
know,
thinking
over
we're
those
starting
2
to get
weeks.
into the camping season coming up here. Weather's going to start to get nice, hopefully.
Yeah.
And with that's going to come more reservations.
And we're probably, hopefully, we're looking at this situation, for the next 3 weeks. I would really hope that we have somebody in that position by the 1st of May, because things are going to start hopping for sure by then. But
Right. I think the 10 to 5, and then just have the answering machine pick it up later, because then you can deal with it in the morning in the order that that the calls came in.
okay,
I don't know if that sounds like something that's doable to you, or
I can,
I guess we can measure it on if all of a sudden it starts getting busier, maybe we have to change that, but until that point, if we're only getting 4 calls, then.
I'm not really following you for sure, Brenda, but what my thoughts were is that, okay, let's have somebody out there, probably taking care of the calls that came in yesterday, and they could man the phone while they're out there.
yeah, a couple hours a day,
Right,
I
yeah.
think would be
Yeah.
sufficient.
Then get them caught up when the ones that, left a message, and then they could answer the phones while they're there, and then.
Thank you, very, very well put.
Yeah.
In a roundabout way, that's what I should have been saying to start with.
What do we want, 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours? What do you want a person out there?
2 hours sounds plenty.
I think a couple hours would be sufficient.
Okay, let's do that, and I don't know, do we need to take action on that other than just a
not on the
commissioner's
agenda.
agreement here on what we're going to do in the interim
There's
here?
nothing on the agenda for action,
Yeah.
but just that the board recommends 2 hours per day to have a live
And we just did that.
person, yep. That's
Are we
your
gonna
recommend-
set
that's your
those hours
recommendation.
then?
Maybe
No,
not
we're
all
gonna
over.
have-
I'll take care of that.
And then that'll be advertised so people know when they can call and speak to somebody?
We'll just have that on their
It'll be
answering
included in the
machine.
answering machine, yeah.
And if they want to leave a message, they still can, rather
Yeah.
than having to call back or
One other
whatever,
thing,
so.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing to put on the answer machine might be the website for making internet reservations too, so they
Yeah.
can just turn around and do that if they want to, so.
They still make
All right.
answering machines?
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Milo. Thank you for bringing
Thanks,
us
Milo.
Yeah, you're right.
to our attention.
The answering machine doesn't have like a cassette tape that records the calls, does it? Okay. Just checking.
It doesn't have erasers in case the wrong numbers are put down either.
All right,
All right,
so
anything
some
else?
more, yeah, some
Anything else
more,
to open?
more things that there could be a quorum of commissioners. Of course, our county boards at 1, consolidated boards tonight at 6:30, government affairs tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Lee mentioned the CJAC meeting Thursday at 6:10.
And Monday is.
And Monday is the county's planning and zoning meeting. They will be going over the draft, it will be set for draft ordinance on wind energy. That will start at 6 o'clock, and then the regular business hopefully will get started around 7:30 for the regular planning and
The one on
zoning.
the 16th, that's a public hearing. That's the first public hearing,
The
right?
public,
So that was at
public
Monday?
input, Monday at, yes,
I think, or
6 o'clock,
6 o'clock is when the wind energy input will be taken.
extension center.
Yep.
We
Yes.
had a lot of phone calls, or a number of phone calls the last week about this ordinance that we were approving today. People wanting to make sure it had nothing to do with wind energy. I emailed everybody that asked me to, I emailed them the ordinance so they could look it over. I advised them it's just administrative language is what it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't have anything to do with wind energy, but they still want to see it. So
We've had 2 public meetings, basically, or getting public input on that, and then we have, Luke, from all of that, have put together a draft ordinance, which will be discussed now on Monday, and that's where more public input can be taken on the things that have been put into the draft, so. And that will be then before it comes to the commission.
And speaking of possible quorum issues, I guess the hospital fundraiser bash is this weekend. I'll be there. I don't know if any of you are planning on
Usually
attending.
do, but not this year.
Okay, anything else for the open?
Saturday.
Anything else? Seeing none, at this time, I would ask for a motion to go into executive session. It'll be very brief. There will be no action taken afterwards.
Who made that motion? That?
Who made that motion?
Lee did, and I'll second.
Evo and
Second.
Hatton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're in executive session. Thank you.
Good thing.